Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the CEO Story. I am Smriti, and I take care of the PGPMAX program from the admissions office at ISB. And today we are having this CEO Story, where we have our stalwart alums talking about their PGPMAX journey and experience. And they'll give you a lot of ideas on their thought process on why did they choose to do a program at what stage of the career they were, and how the journey has been and how they have progressed through their careers and all. So going ahead with this session, in order of seniority, I'll introduce to you Mehraj Dubey. He is from the batch of 2013 and a Deputy
Hi.
General Manager Marketing at ABP Network. Welcome, Mehraj.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
And at PGPMAX, no one is senior.
Right, right. Then we have Lata Nathan. She is from the batch of 2015 and currently the Vice President at Fidelity Investments. Welcome, Lata, to the session today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And the last one that we have is Dhanya. Dhanya is from the batch of 2017 and currently the Regional Head Sales and Business Development at Amazon. Welcome, Dhanya, to the session today.
Thank you.
So
Pleasure to be here.
the way we'll be doing the session is first, I have a few questions from my end that I would like to ask to the panel today. And once we are done with those questions, I'll encourage the audience to, ask the questions. They can put their questions in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll take it up one by one to the panelists. And in case you want to raise your hand and ask the questions directly to, you can just raise and I'll allow you to talk and you can speak to the panel today. So the first question will be, the first few questions that I would ask will go on for around 15-20 minutes. So please bear with me till then, and post that I'll open it up for Q&A. So before we start, all of you, the panel today, would you share a quick introduction with us for the audience? Starting with Mehraj, probably.
Yeah, so like Smriti said, 2013 PGPMAX, and it was intake 3. And basically the intake 1 guys met us at the info session in Delhi and converted us. And it was such a pleasure to be in a learning group that was indeed a life-changing experience for me. I work as a media professional and news media professional for last 22 years, mostly in Noida and Mumbai. And right now I'm working with ABP Network. I lead marketing for B2B marketing for the network. So we have TV channels and digital portals. And other than that, I look after as a brand ABP Live, which is our digital brand. And I have a weekly show on ABP News, which is a flagship channel. So this weekly show is about personal investments. So watch that as well, Sunday 1:30 p.m. and enjoy. And other than that, wow, maybe before you ask me anything, if I'm not taking too much time, Smriti, congratulations everyone for being here, sacrificing your Saturday evening. But I would also congratulate your bosses, your families and friends who let you go on a Saturday. And, since it's going to be a longest session, if I can call it so, Smriti. So I must tell you that it's going to be worth it because you want a change, you want learning, and you made an effort for it. And that's worth its time. So all the best for this session.
Thank you, Mehraj, for the lovely introduction that you have given us today. Moving on to Lata, would you like to introduce us?
Hi, all. I'm currently working with Fidelity Investments, which is the second largest investment firm in the world. I head one of their digitization units, which is largely into supporting the paperless initiative and a lot of other digital aspects that have come in right now, which has taken a lot more precedence with COVID, being in the picture as such. Prior to that, I worked with a fintech called Bank Bazaar and was heading their delivery and operations. And I do have prior stints of starting up operations of a couple of organizations in India. One was a New Zealand-based product firm, and the other was a technology firm, which for which I started off the operations in Bangalore. My stint has entirely been on the technology side, but not just limited specific to technology, but also managed operations. Business units and an entire organization end to end, managing both the top line and the bottom line. Prior to I did my engineering at BITS Pilani and then my PGPMAX at ISB. I've worked across 5 to 6 countries and pretty much across most of the cities in India as well. So I'm an avid traveler, both from a work and from a personal perspective. On the personal front, I'm married, and my husband is an artist, a paint artist. So we complement each other mentally a lot at home, because it's a little more balanced over here. So that's a little bit about me. I'm very glad to be here. I've always been very, very excited being associated with the ISB. The journey has always been a pleasure, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm now doing my second degree with ISB. I'm doing my executive fellowship program with ISB right now. So we'll talk a little bit more as we go through. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Lata. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And Dhanya, over to you now.
Thanks, Smriti. That was actually a very good introduction, Lata. Following you is not easy. Okay, so I am a sales and marketing professional with about 20 years of experience. I completed my graduation and joined this company called Hutch, which eventually was called Vodafone. I spent about 14 years in one company and throughout in telecom of course, and then ISB happened. I worked in 2 startups after ISB and across logistics, and the second one was Ola. And then I joined Amazon about 2 years ago, and I lead the strategic account management team for a category called HCTP, which we call as the high consideration tech products. Plus one to what Mehraj said, I think it takes a lot for someone to sort of make up their mind at this juncture in your career to invest in education, and I'm sure it's a huge decision given that we all would have traveled some distance in our personal lives at this point in time in our careers. So all the best to all of y'all, and looking forward to be of any help to any of you, even on a one-on-one basis if you need to reach out, anything that you need to know about ISB. And I'm equally excited, like Lata said, to be part of anything associated with ISB in every possible way. Thank you, Shruti. Back to you.
Thank you, Dhanya, and thank you for extending the support to the audience to be personally available for any help. So audience, before I say anything, please do make a note of this. And in case you need to, consult with any of our panel today personally on a one-to-one basis, I think Mehraj and Lata would also be available. And please do let us know in case you have any interest there. So starting the session now. So I'll ask a question to all of you. Probably one of you can start answering and then others can follow. So the first question that I have is, at the point where you decided that you have to do a program or upskill in your career, what was the reason for you to think on those lines, and how did your life personally and professionally change after graduating from the program? So probably Dhanya, we can start from you this time.
Sure. So I mentioned, Smriti, I had spent almost 14 years in one company. I had joined them post-graduation. I grew the ranks within the company, and I was at this juncture where I had to reinvent myself. And there was this question obviously on my mind, if I was competent enough to be the next generation business leader. And organizations today, I think, are increasingly matrixed, more digitized, less silo-driven. It means that you need to have an increased ability to sort of appreciate the art of influencing, coupled with some bit of think big that needs to come in to sort of be able to make an impact. So I was in that dilemma at that point in time. If I had it in me to be ready to become the next generation business leader, And that's when I sort of, researched a bit, looked at a lot of global programs at that point in time that were available. And then finally realized that, PGPMAX had this stellar track record of equipping candidates like me with a very, very powerful alum network and tremendous learning opportunities. And that's when I sort of decided that I have to invest in my education and went ahead with PGPMAX.
Sure. Thank you, Danya. Mehraj, would you like to throw some light?
Yeah, very true. I think 10, 15 years in the job. I think I was 11 years in my career that time, and I was, I think, doing pretty good. But I was this restless, some sort of restlessness was there to get some change in the sense that you want to grow. You sometimes think there's a glass ceiling above you, and something is stopping you from taking that next big role, or you are just not satisfied. You want to do something more, or something more could mean realizing your potential. You think you have so much in you and you want to sort of utilize, or sometimes an organization or a role does not give you enough space to explore all your strengths. So I think that's sort of feeling I was going into. That's when, and it's not just ISB. I actually ended up being in many info sessions that time. And so I remember and it was becoming a sort of a pleasure trip. You go to one of these 5 stars in Delhi after work and have a coffee and meet interesting people. So Singapore's or Washington's or this or that, and then I hit ISB info sessions. So yes, that's how I started. And of course, I think it was also about not knowing what next. A bit of that was also there.
Sure. Thank you, Mehraj. Definitely, I agree with both of you that there comes a point where, you seek something more, you want to do something more. So yes, Lata, over to you. Would you like to share your experience then?
Sure. I think the benefits that are called out by Mehraj and Danya, I would completely echo on it, right? While maybe they had other choices, for me, ISB was always the obvious choice. I don't know if it was good or bad, but I was initially into thinking about the PGP program, and I attended. So it was ISB. Which program I was going to do there was the only difference. And I went in for info sessions over 6 years for PGP in Chennai and across whichever city I was in. And every year I was contemplating because there were a lot of family responsibilities on one side, which didn't allow me to leave my job, and on the other side my mom's fragile health was another reason as well. And then when I attended the 6th info session, the person there called out saying, I'm seeing you attending these sessions for a while now. Is there a strong reason why you're not able to make a decision or apply for it? And then I said this, and the person said, why don't you look at a PGPMAX? I went in for the PGPMAX info session that happened the month after, and I would say that was the best guidance I had got, because when compared to PGPMAX has a lot of visiting professors who are the area leaders. And that makes a lot of difference, because you're getting a perspective of different culture, because these professors come in from very different countries. So you're not only talking about the Indian economy, but you're also talking about maybe other growing economies like Spain, or many other places, that Brazil, where we got some of our professors from, or even very developed economies which have a different kind of, or a different set of issues as such, right? So to me, ISB was the obvious choice, and PGPMAX was the best thing, because uh, 10 years plus, I think the kind of value that you're looking at from a program is not about learning concepts. You're actually trying to understand a little bit of everything that's happening around, so that you get a better understanding to be able to lead business units or lead organizations, and an overall perspective is what you need. And that's something we get in a fulfilling manner from this particular program as such.
Thank you, Lata, for sharing those thoughts there. So the next question that I have for all of you is, it's a program which is spread across 15 months, so quite a duration which is attached to the program. So if I could ask the two most important things that you learned from the PGPMAX program, which helped you in your career and is currently also doing so. So, we can start with Mehraj this time. Any two important learnings from the program?
So two things that might have had most impact, right? I think one was that uh, I will answer this question from a very, very personal perspective, because each one's perspective is going to be unique. So in my case, I was a journalist who had been around, and I had met people, and I was hosting cabinet ministers in my shows, and I was meeting best of gel. I had interviewed Ratan Tata and Ambani's. So, I was flying, and I mean, so I think the biggest thing was that when you come out of your cocoon and meet so many talented people and so many knowledgeable people and professors, you realize there's so much more to learn. So there was this, this world outside my world that I didn't know about. And I said, oh my God, so much is happening. And, in this industry, let's say you meet a person from IT industry, or you meet someone who is an entrepreneur in the same town as you live, but you didn't know about. So much was happening. So that's one big impactful thing, I think, in my case. There is so much happening. And why? I mean, how do you know about it? Do you know about it only through a how-to video in a YouTube? Or you actually immerse yourself through a processed and a scheduled learning with with people who are certified, who deserve to teach you, who have done it, who've done their own research. So all this has to be done in a, like you say, with some substance. So yes, the world is open. All of you can go for a world tour, or do whatever, quit your job and do this or do that. But how do you want to do that learning? I think that's one big impactful thing. Second is, so when you in one function working all your life, like in 18 hours, you hardly know anything about other things. And so how do you really grow in an organization? The organization expects a leader to know more than just one function, or have the perspective that how this organization will lead itself into a scenario, or into a, in a world of competition. So I think that, so I could, as a journalist, start looking at, let's say, funnily, I mentioned that I started using MS Excel, which is something that I had not used before. Or I started reading balance sheets in a very different fashion, compared to as I did as a journalist. Or I approached whole human resource, leading teams, negotiations. So I slowly shifted to a business role, and it took me a while, but then ISB had made that foundation for me that I could walk with confidence, and I didn't really have to sit and say, मेरे को आता नहीं जी, आप मुझे बता देना जी. Instead, I said, what's the right question to ask if you want to learn something? I knew what to ask. So yes, an MBA cannot sort of, turn you into a business leader overnight. But what it gives you, an ISB kind of MBA, what it gave me is the foundation, the whole understanding. This immersive experience is what I think perhaps the right phrase for it. So I think these two were very important for me. But people around me, I think it was very different. For entrepreneurs, someone really learned so much from this MBA that he got a huge valuation for his firm and exited and made a lot of money and all that. So I know those people I have to mention about. Then there was this professional who became a journalist, who started his firm. And there was this guy who was into real estate, a builder, as we call it. His firm is so much more, sophisticated now. So, you see this difference. It's not just me. I think everyone goes through this change. But yes, one rider is always there. The change happens through you. It's so all this I had to see myself. I have to apply my lens and, go through the rut, as you say, something like that. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mehraj.
My son is just sitting here. He wants me to be a little, less louder. Never mind. All right, never mind.
Sure. Lata, over to you. Do you want to share your learnings from the program?
So So I kind of second what Mehrad said, right? The whole experience is very humbling. In fact, one of the professors who took a course for us had actually was actually the author of that particular theory he taught us, and just sitting through his class, and he was very humble in explaining and re-explaining when we didn't get it right. And he didn't tell us until almost the last day that he was the person who has actually found that particular theory and the concept. And this was a professor from Stanford and an Indian by origin, right? Certain things like that make you realize that, and as Mehrad said, when you're flying very well in your own career, in your own domain, you think you know it all, and coming in here actually humbles you and makes you realize that there's a lot more happening, and there are people who have a lot more knowledge in other domains, which is important for you to know and understand as well, right? That's one part. The second part is the enormous peer learning and networking that we got, right? In fact, one example was, there was a person who's been like a VC investing in a lot of organizations. And then there was another healthcare professional. At the end of our PGPMAX, these two folks joined in together to start a healthcare firm, and they're providing a lot of support and experience, not just to the elite people in the world, but they are also looking at people who are in the bottom of the pyramid and supporting them as well. Now, certain organizations or certain ventures like this wouldn't have happened if people didn't come in together for this PGP Max program as such. One other aspect that I would say personally is, I'm an engineer by background. I have an engineering background. I actually used to dread numbers when it comes to finance, when it comes to balance sheets. These were areas that I completely thought were a no-no for me. But getting into this program actually gave the conference. We had a professor from Kellogg who actually taught us accounting. He was the area leader in the Kellogg School of Business. But the way the course was taught, the way the case studies were brought in, the kind of very, very practical examples that were brought in and that were getting discussed in the class actually helped us get a lot of insight into areas that I wasn't aware of, and helped me actually become a more complete leader to be able to run an organization when I went back. And again, I want to second Mehrad's thought that at the end of the day, it's about how much you are able to digest from what's happening and go back and apply as well. Those are very important aspects as well for us to gain complete value out of the program.
Sure. Thanks, Lata. Dhanya, if you would like to share your learnings from the program.
I think Miraj and Lata covered it all, Smriti. I think the only thing that I would like to add is, I guess the PGP Max actually helps you expand your outlook, and it sort of breaks some predefined mindsets, that you come with. And with all the interactions with one of the smartest minds in the industry, and I think ISB does a great job in bringing a very good cohort of people together every year. I think those interactions with this diverse student community, it sort of helps you in many ways than apart from what Lata mentioned about what you take away from the professors. I think one more subtle thing, and this is again very personal to me. When you work for so long with one company, and Mehraj put it very well. I think you're more a frog in the well. I was mentioning this the other day as well. I think it sort of expands your outlook completely. And what it does eventually is to give you the courage and confidence, or maybe the self belief that you sort of can get out and try new things, right? Otherwise, you're always second guessing in terms of what you want to do next in your career. And I think ISB helped me to do that. I in fact, after like I was mentioning earlier, right? I had that confidence to get out of one company where I was doing exceedingly well, and then sort of started off in a startup, logistics startup, and then worked in another startup before I got back to corporate again. And I think, in hindsight, when I think about it, this would not have happened if I was not at ISB.
Thank you, Dhanya. Wonderful experiences to share from all of you guys. The next I have is, there's a lot of investment financially, mentally, and physically that is involved in doing such a rigorous program. So, and we get a lot of questions, on the return of investment. What do you get out of investing so much in a program? So, your take on the ROI from the PGPMAX program. Lata, we'd like to start from this.
Yes, the investment is high, both from a cost or money standpoint as well as from a time standpoint, right? No doubt about it. Are you looking at the returns to come back very quickly? Like, I've invested, 40 plus, 35 to 40 lakhs in a year. Would I get that back immediately in the next 1 year or 2 years? I would say you need to give it a little more time beyond that. That's the honest answer in terms of your return from a money perspective. But the time factor is where you also need to make sure that you prepare the people around you. When I say the people around you, it involves your organization as well as your family as well. So one of the things that I did was, it's a small family. It's just me, my husband, and my dad. I actually used to take them along with me all the 15 weeks when I went in for the program as such. And honestly, they loved the ISB campus, and they used to be a lot more busy than me at the ISB campus. They used to be a part of the gala dinners. My batch would mockingly say that, Lata, when you get your degree, you need to actually split that into 3 parts and give one to your dad, one to your husband, and then take one, because they've been equally supportive of the program as much as you've invested time. That's on the fun side. But honestly, I would say give it a little more time. How does it help you? By completing this program, I would say I stayed with my same organization for a year and a half after I completed the program, because the organization helped me. I wanted to give them time, and I wanted to give back, the effort to see if they are able to give me more responsibilities or better opportunities. A year and a half down the line was when I actually picked up another opportunity that came my way, which was Bang Bazaar, the fintech that I was referring to. I got much more broader responsibilities there than what I was doing in my earlier role. And one of the aspects was due to the knowledge that I had gained from the PGPMAX program, and also the confidence that I was able to exuberate with the ISB brand that got attached to me as well. Right. So I would say the ROI comes over a period and not immediate, but it differs from person to person. There were a few folks in my batch who got immediate promotions. There were a few folks who got promotions as they were doing the program itself. Some of them who got a very good hike in their salary, and the organization also funded a portion of the program as well. So the experiences are very different. What I am referring to is a very subdued way, right? Wherein it was not immediate, but over a period, be it my job at Bang Bazaar or the current one that I'm doing at Fidelity, the ISB brand definitely added value to it from a personal standpoint, and also for me to be able to market myself better.
Thank you, Lata. Mehraj, would you like to share your thoughts here?
So, let me tell you the joke first, and I'll quote Mano Matthews, my batchmate, who used to call it this. Yeah, this is a sunk cost, and you learn about the sunk cost principle in your finance class. So don't talk about money. But I think Lata and Dhanya have already answered. Yes, it is a lot of investment, and I really appreciate the way Lata put the investment of time, because you're putting in a lot of time into it. Even when you're not on campus, you're studying and preparing, and it's so time-wise, it's fun. I mean, I'm not scaring anyone here. It is good to have structured life and have a lot of investment in studies and learning. So money, I would say yes, please calculate your risks. Don't sort of get into don't make it a pain point for yourself. I see a lot of students, not just ISB, but otherwise in my age or in my level of career, a lot of people just think that they just have to do a great MBA and everything will be sorted. So they just, it's like, I don't want to use any phrase here, which is sort of offensive, but it's like sell your house and do an MBA. No, don't do that. Yeah, but it is an investment, and it is investment worth its price, and it should be a calculated risk, and plan your money well. And yes, it's not going to come back within a year or two. For some entrepreneurs, one decision, one good decision can get all that money back. It's just one decision. And I know a friend who was an entrepreneur and who saved so much money because of his finance class, because he was building a very big project in one of these metropolises. And he just kept, I mean, he was just so surprised after he learned something in finance class, that he went through 3 nights. He was calculating it again and again. I remember this conversation. We are eating, we are walking, and wherever we are, and he was this talking to another friend who was also sort of a finance wizard. And then he arrived at a decision that he is not doing that project. Because this project was set to, collapse. It was not viable project. And so that's also so much of saving. So it's not like you just get that money back. It's also about how you not get into a wrong project, or for example, just one concept that I learned, and I applied in one of my marketing campaigns, and it changed the way people talked with my sales team in the field. So that is the kind of learning you need from research-based learning from best of professors. That's something you can apply, because it's all industrial research. It's not a armchair teaching somewhere. So yeah, it's sort of a complex. So do take a proper evaluation of your finances, how much you want to invest, but don't go by saying ki yaar mehenga hai, sasta hai. Is there's so much these days, I think. So since 2013 and now, so much has changed in terms of your access to studies online, etc. I mean, sitting here, you can do a Washington University program. There's this IIT Bombay program. There's this, I don't know, and so much is happening. And all these big names abroad have actually come down and doing some programs here. So now the decision is so much more complex, because just by someone giving you an MBA program, let's say 10 lakh lesser, I don't think that it becomes a comparable thing. What you should actually see is who is coming to teach you, what are they teaching, why they want you on campus for a week. It's not like no one fancies seeing your face on campus, for that many days. It's like they want you to go through that immersive experience, that peer learning that Dhanya talked about, and then that's a network for a lifetime. I have access to one of the MDs of Deutsche Bank. Even now, call him and say I'm stuck in traffic, and that's because he was my batchmate. He'll say, Baraj, spend this way and don't do this, and tu aajkal aisa karta hai, waisa karta hai. It's like mentoring for life that I have from him. So that's one aspect. So just don't measure that money in terms of hours spent or percentage hike in a salary. It's something else. It's more than just your salary. Yeah. So that I think that's how I can best answer this question.
Thank you, Miraj. I think that's what we also talk about, that it's not all about money. It's definitely some aspects are about money because you're investing so much, but who also think about the network that you gain and the learnings that you have through the program. So rightly pointed out there. Dhanya, over to you. Your thoughts on the ROI.
I think again, Lata and Miraj covered a lot of it already, Smriti. I think a simple way to sort of summarize what they both said is there are two elements, right? And the way I would like to put it is there is a softer elements of the ROI, and then there is a hard ROI in terms of money, growth, etc. I think everything that you gather, which is the softer elements, I've literally seen a lot of people go through uh, a lot of transformation in many ways, after they've actually our batchmates, and I'm sure each one of us will have a zillion stories to share about what has happened to so many of us in the batch, and what happened to others in the same batch, right? And it's just definitely has been a transformational journey, and I think ISB is the right place to sort of go through a transformation like that. And those are the softer elements which you can't really sort of put a finger on and say that I passed out of ISB and from yesterday to today this is what has happened, right? It's a journey that you go through and you see the change in yourself on an everyday basis. And I spoke about it some time back also. I think the entire confidence it gives you, the self-belief, it sort of helps you to take a lot of decisions in your life and move forward, right? And then comes the hard ROI part of it, which is growth and money and all of that, because you're ready to sort of take on a lot more. And I guess that's pretty much, in my mind, everything that you get as part of what you get in ISB, which are the softer elements, actually preps you up to get all the money and the growth that you're actually looking for thereafter. But I guess Mehraj and Lata actually covered a lot of it already, and I think it's not about the money; it's a lot more. And each one of us who passed out of ISB can actually talk about it a lot more, in any setting in terms of what ISB has done to us.
Thank you, Dhanya. I think you also rightly mentioned a point about non-measurable softer aspects that you get, which we don't, in fact, which we are not able to quantify, but we should also look at that. Thank you for pointing that out. So the next question that I have, we get a lot of this queries from the candidates that, it's a rigorous program. We'll have to invest a lot of time, and, I don't have the time right now. Or else, even if I get into the program, how will I be able to manage? What is the rigor involved? So Danya, let's start with you for this question. How did you balance all the three aspects of family, work, and the study at the ISB?
I think, in fact, Lata covered this in the last question, Smriti. I think expectation setting is a start point for everything, right? And I think family plays a very, very big role here. And for each one of us, in many ways, whether I've had batchmates who've had two kids. One of my friends who had two kids, we call her a superwoman. She had a very, very huge responsibility of managing thousands of people that she was managing in her in the organization that she was part of. And her husband actually pitched in and took care of the kids while she was so invested, in her at work as well as at ISB. And I'm sure there are many stories like this. I think to start with, its expectation setting with the family and family support meant a lot. And I guess all of us were fortunate enough at work to sort of rely on people who are part of our teams, rely on our managers to sort of take on a lot more. And I think that's what really helped to get us through. I guess one thing that I've realized while I was in ISB is when you start off, or when you're making the decision of wanting to get into ISB, you actually wonder, would you really have the time for it? And you actually realize when you start studying that you can always make time, right? And it somehow expands, the same number of hours which you thought was not enough for family and for work, you somehow manage to do several hours of studying every day. And I think it just teaches you to prioritize. Maybe you're doing a lot of things which is not so necessary, and that sort of keeps you busy, and you start realizing that you have so much more to do, and you prioritize. And I guess that pretty much helped all of us to get through the very, very rigorous 1.5 years that we went through in ISB.
Thank you, Danya. Thank you for that answer there. I hope it helped the audience today. Lata, would you like to share your thoughts here about balancing everything with the program?
Uh, So definitely the most important part is I felt I became a lot more productive after going through the program, right? In 2014, 2015, while I was applying for this program, the organization that I was with, honestly, I didn't have anything less than 18 hours at work. That was how stretched my schedule was. And I was a little skeptical, but I think I became a lot more productive, and prioritization, you learn the importance of prioritization as well. So much so that by the time I'd finished my PGPMAX program, I actually had time, and I decided to invest in so continuous learning, right? That's an aspect that I've been doing even prior to getting into ISB. And I think that's a way of life for most of us, because in today's world, we cannot live without continuously updating ourselves and upgrading our knowledge as well. By the time I finished PGP Max, I actually got into a certain schedule which gave me a little more time, and I was able to get into a lot more product development work, develop my skills in that particular area, and work on a few certifications. And that's what also paved me to eventually get into my final dream of doing my PhD as well. While yes, with COVID, it did take a lag, and did take a little bit of a back seat. I think at the end of the day, it's about how you prioritize, and you will be able to make it. Yes, there are going to be pre-reads. Yes, there are going to be some assignment submissions that have to happen, but it's not dreadful. If all of us have done it, I think you guys can do it as well. So don't be so worried about it.
Thank you,
I
Danya,
think
for that.
one big change, Sprati, is that in 2013 you didn't have as many OTTs, so you had more time.
Rightly
But
pointed out, Miraz.
maybe a PGPMAX can help you escape a lot of wasteful hours with your strange fictions and violent fiction that you're busy in. So it's a time well spent. I think that's also responsibility every leader, that let's spend learning. Also, you learn to spend time and manage the time when you are in something like this, in this kind of a program. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mehraj, Lata, and Danya, for patiently answering my questions, and audience to patiently listening to all of the questions that I had on your behalf today. So now I'll open it up to the audience to ask questions. So while I have one question in the Q&A box, the others, while you can also type in your questions subsequent to the one that I have. So the first question that I have is for Lata. So somebody is asking about the EFPM program and wanting to understand if a person is confronted to choose only one among the PGPMAX and EFPM due to time constraints, what would your suggestion be with the experience of both?
So the two are completely different programs altogether. You cannot compare them. But the one thing that I want to call out is even before, uh, the whole idea that and where my passion lied, I actually discovered it as a part of my PGPMAX program. So as a part of the PGPMAX program, we had a course on leadership and leadership and you, and the professor who actually took that course eventually put us through a retrospective quiz, and he asked us a bunch of questions. He asked us to answer those questions, and then once we've answered that, he helped us unfold each answer and how that actually aligned to what we think, right? So the questions were very different. The answers we gave were then aligned to what we are as a personality and how we think. And one of the one of the answers that I gave was being able to share knowledge. And the professor said that whatever you've given as answer there is what is an area of passion that you have, or where you're really good at and where your mind lies. And that's when I did a little bit of introspection, and I realized that as a person, I've always liked to share knowledge. Even during school days, even during the days of exam, I'd actually walk in an hour earlier into school to help people solve problems. So I'll go in, and for that 1 hour before the exam, I'll sit outside the hall and I'll write out problems. I'll solve it out for them, and I'll tell them this is how you go about solving it. And after the exam, people would come out and say, hey, very similar question came in for 10 marks or so, and we were able to answer this. And I'm not talking about people who are like awesome guys who are in that centum category who would learn it from me. These are people who are barely able to pass through, or will pass through, who would actually have answered those 10-mark questions, and that makes a lot of difference for them. And I was able to introspect a little bit more and realize that yes, I'm in the corporate career. Yes, even in the corporate career, out of all the areas that I have, my team always acknowledges that the way I teach them, the way I help them to learn things and move forward, is what they like the most about me. And I was able to draw a thread, and I realized that, hey, eventually being able to do my PhD or do my fellowship program and get into teaching is what my eventual thought process or mission would be. And that's how it transcended into that. So in short, if you're a person who is a lot more looking into the corporate career, who's more into looking at growing into a leadership role, more into a CEO kind of role, definitely PGPMAX is the right program for you. But eventually, if you're looking at getting into a consulting role, a role where there's a lot of research oriented work that's happening, then that's when an EFPM would actually play a lot more sense.
Sure. Thank you, Lata. I hope it answered the question for the person who asked it. I think Ankit is wanting to ask a question. He has raised his hand. So Ankit, I'm allowing you to talk. You can ask your question, please. Ankit, I hope you're able to hear us. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, I think Ankit is not able to. Okay. So the next question that I have is, a lot of conversations and, uh, this thing, consultation with the employer also is required to, allow you to do a program, because the format of or the structure of the program is such because you'll have to take leaves and then you go back to the organization after the leave and get back to work. So how did all of you take up this conversation with your employer to, convince them to take this time off and that you'll be investing that time into learning? So Mehraj, if you could point some thoughts over there.
So sorry, I got a little distracted. I was reading some very good questions from Chandra Bhushan. I got completely engrossed in that. Could you just repeat your question?
No problem. I'll just repeat. So how did you take up this conversation with your employer that
Right.
you'd be taking
Right.
the time off and you'll come back and work again? So
I think that's one big sort of a blurry area that people wonder what will happen, etc., etc. But I think it is also an opportunity for your organization to engage well with you. Maybe they think that they're not able to do enough for you, so this way they will do more for you. That's one new, different way of looking at it. So have that conversation and have it now. Then also you have to sort of, prepare yourself for this conversation, because it's not just you just, walk into your boss's cabin and discuss your Diwali holiday. It's more than that. You want to sort of organize that conversation by saying, can we go out for lunch? Or, I need 10 minutes attention. And then you should be prepared to answer a lot of questions, because, people think that your MBA is going to be a ticket to exit that firm. A lot of people think that, but not all of them. So you should be able to answer that. That is not just like, Lata very, very nicely said that she gave her organization a year or so, because she wanted to give back, or she wanted to give her organization, her bosses some time. Same with me. I was in journalism career, and almost a year I waited to, to explore if something could happen in the same company. So that conversation, yes, it's a big point. Plan it well, but have it now. Don't delay it, because you need to know what they think before you make so much investment and or make another choice. So if, let's say, even career-wise, you want to make a choice, now you know if your people or your bosses, your company loves you to learn new things or not. Now you know your bosses let you go out and make new friends and find new teachers or not. Let's know our organization more just by having one conversation that, hey, I want to go and join PGPMAX. That one conversation is going to open up so many things about your surroundings to yourself. So let's have it now. So I think that's, yes, prepare for it and do it and make your points and know more about PGPMAX before you go, because it's not just about having leave. By the way, like I was in journalism career, and some of my colleagues were actually thinking that, this guy's having good time out. He's having a holiday in Hyderabad, because they were thinking that, the office job is much more complex. In journalism, you have late nights, you have unpredictable schedules, you have unpredictable travels, etc., stress, this, that. So they thought that, no, his life has become much more organized now, that he has to leave on a certain Friday and, have fun on campus, because campus to a lot of people mean good fun and meeting friends, etc., etc. And, who doesn't want it 10, 12 years after in the job, because you don't get that opportunity. So no, so I started telling them, listen, this is my homework. Look, this is my pre-read. I'm reading it. I've hired a driver. I'm reading it on my way to job, on my way to office. So it's different. People will have different view or perspective about an MBA or a week-long visit to the campus. So you need to be able to answer those questions when you're having this conversation. Plus, you also have to open up about your ambition that, you want to learn, with, in a structured environment, you want to contribute more to the organization. Listen, I'll go out and make new friends and learn new things. And who is going to benefit after all? You, my organization, my boss, my team. So then everybody should be able to start looking at the positive aspect of you being out of office, or you trying to make so much. So my boss had suddenly got worried about so much investment I was making. Twice he asked me कि भाई इतना क्यों कर रहा है. Or after a while, I mean, maybe it's been 10 years now, so I can sort of mention this as an exclusive piece for this this webinar. So halfway through, my boss decided to make my leaves unpaid. Okay. So this he simply said, maybe something was not going well between me and him, and he said that, listen, you've run out of your quota for your annual leaves, right? But this ISB keeps happening, and so you just keep disappearing, etc. And maybe he was just mentioning it out of a temperament. Within 15 minutes, my HR vice president walks in, as he was in a different floor. He came to my floor and said, listen, we will take care of that. So there are people in the organization who are willing to help you learn and do new things, and there are people who are very regressive and they just can't stand this conversation. So be ready to face anything, but know it now, so much more better for you.
If I could add on to what Mehraj said, right? I think 2, 3 things that it helps us. One is it helps us understand by having this conversation if we are in the right organization which wants to be invested in us and which wants to stay invested in our growth. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as a person, we build us next level of leaders. You're consciously actually planning for people who can be your next in command if you haven't done that, because 7 days you're away from work, all decisions cannot wait for 7 days. There can be 1 or 2 that can wait. You actually will start planning your next in command, and you will plan for those people to take over whatever has to happen, and that the function keeps running without any hindrance at all. And what happens in the course of time is also that your bosses will try to understand that, hey, things are running well now. We running well in whatever he or she has already been having as responsibilities. Let us give this person a few more responsibilities because that person is capable of doing it. And the third thing is, they also realize that you have invested, because just like Mehraj, where in as far as PGPMAX was concerned, I didn't get any support from my financial aid from my organization. I also went on unpaid leaves all through. I just had 20 days of annual leave, which I could use initially, but that exhausts within 2 or 3 trips that you do. And for the remaining 12 of them, I went with unpaid leave. So the organization also gets a message back that somebody is doing this and very heavily invested in his or her success and in her growth. We better support this person and provide enough for this person to chew. Otherwise, this person is, we will not be able to hold on to this person as well. I think these are 2, 3 things that people get as messaging, and we also end up doing as well.
Just to add, there's an interesting point you mentioned, Lata. You have to tell them that, I mean, a good point to make this conversation is that, listen, if I take break, if I do something new, I'm going to be as much more interested in my current job. I'm going to be, refreshed, and I'm going to be more motivated and interested in doing my 4 weeks when I do, and 5th week when I'm there. So no, it's like this particular coach, I forget, he had asked Indian cricket team to play football because when they played football, they were more like a team. And then they came back to play cricket for the country and they were playing it better. So you need to prove that point. I think that's also one interesting argument to sort of, when you're presenting your case, must mention this, that this will make you a more productive, more interested, more engaged employee of that team. Because you're learning new things, you're getting a kick in life now.
Yes, definitely. Lata and Mehraj, I think you rightly mentioned these points where you have to be very candid with your organization and, making them understand how invested you are in your career, and, make them also invested in your growth and the learnings that you have taken too. Danya, would you like to share your experience of talking to your employer at that point of time?
In my case, I think I was really fortunate, Smriti. I had worked in one organization for a long time. I had enough credibility that I had built for myself. And I had a great, set of managers who were really invested in my learning, right? I think the only thing that I will add to what Lata and Mehraj said is I think the, the conviction that you carry as to why you want to do this and how sure are you about, what you want to do. I think if you are very convinced, it sort of exudes that confidence when you're having the conversation with whoever it is, right? Whether it is your manager, whether it is your skip, in terms of the person being very serious, very invested, and this is something that we can do for this individual who is a part of this organization, right? And in my case, there were absolutely no hurdles. All it took is for them to know that this is what I always wanted to do, and there was all the support. In fact, I did not even have to go through the whole paid leave, unpaid leave conversation. All my leaves were paid for.
Sure. Thank you, Tanya. So I have next question from Chandrabhushan. He's asking, by the time I think he's already enrolled for the program and made up his mind. So he'd be joining the course in 2024 and has around 20 plus years of experience. So he's just wanting to know, would it be wise to invest in himself to boost the professional growth for next year? What is the industry acceptance of the program at this age, and how is the PGPMAX program different from the other executive programs?
Can I get started, Smriti, by
Yes,
quoting in? So I had somebody in my batch who was 54 when he joined the program. This was a person who was the engineering head for Air India, and so that should answer it all. And this person, Sharat is his name. He actually had his kids also, studying engineering around the same time, and he was investing in himself. So he was telling that it was a little bit of a tough decision because he had two kids going into engineering for whom he was paying a reasonable fee, and he was also investing in himself. But this was a decision that he made because he felt that at this age it was important to reinvent and to be able to uh, upgrade himself. Now, this person continues to be in Air India and has picked up a lot of additional responsibilities. There were a lot of, even during certain crisis situations that they had within Air India, this person was given higher responsibilities. So that should answer it. I really don't
And I
think
think last
age
I
is a
saw
factor.
Lata, he's CEO of some organization.
Yes,
Sharat's
I think
profile
yes,
CEO
last
of the
time.
same organization now.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So fantastic. In fact, we had someone like an executive director from a big pharmaceutical firm. The company sponsored him. And I'm not particularly quoting his name because I want to quote a very interesting conversation, and that gives you sort of a picture. So we are having tea and I'm telling him that, listen, I really respect you. You are almost my father's age. And you know what he told me? He said, but my problem, Maharaj, is that my boss is your age. Okay. So after having done everything and having arrived at ED designation, what was going on in his life was a very youngish fellow from a very modern MBA class had joined as his boss. And so he had to change himself to work with this new boss. And by the way, this person is again doing very good. He, after having done this MBA and having worked in his function, he took up a new function, altogether a new function. His company's stock since then has done tripled or something in 10 years. But only recently we were congratulating him for having arrived in a new function and leading that function so well in the new whole function he's built because company believed in him so much more. So, but yes, it's tough. I mean, I completely see you in doing this MBA in late 40s. You must evaluate your options. But there are many more avenues. So yes, if you do your well-studied mapping of your future, I think age is no bar. In fact, PGP, we have seen so many people joining in their late 40s. So PGP is something like you completely shut your job and come to campus for a year and a half. Compared to that, this is still good because, but yes, you have to sell yourself, sir. So you have to really go out and tell them, listen, I am now going to be in a leaders league. I've done enough of this leg job, and I need to know more about strategy and leadership. That's why I'm joining this. So I'm going to be more worthy of a job. I'm going to be more employable. It's not like I'm going on a retirement spree or want to become a coach after joining PGPMAX.
Sure. Thank you, Lata and Mehraj, for taking it up.
And sorry, should I answer the IIM bit?
Yes, please.
So so I think this is what I learned from Sanjay Singh, who used to be program director those days, Professor Sanjay Singh. He would never criticize. He would appreciate all other, executive MBAs. So yes, he never criticized. People always ask this question whether IIM is better or ISB. But I have no qualms in saying ISB is better. I'll tell you why. This is more diversified class, okay, and the whole approach of something that came with the inception, because Wharton, Kellogg, and MIT Sloan came together to help build this organization. The whole approach has been very different. So with due respect to IIMs, they've given many leaders to this country and to our industries. Full respect to them. But you must give a full consideration to this MBA because it's a very well diversified class, very different environment. It's not just engineers. So that's also one is what I'm trying to say when I'm talking about diversified class. It's a great mix of entrepreneurs, different people from different. So that's also one big factor. Yes.
Thank you, Mehraj, for taking that up. Satyapal has a question. Satyapal, I am allowing you to talk. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Please.
Yeah, I'm seeing three different personalities in front of me at the moment. All are very humble in saying whatever they're supposed to say. Thanks, Lataji, for clarifying me about EFPM and again PGPMAX. I was really in dilemma about that part. And again, about thinking about the organizational importance, whether they are going to invest in you or not, what exactly, how are they weighing your options also, how are they weighing your leadership qualities? That was a little bit of insight from. And coming to Mehraj, just I have one question because he's very passionate and he was saying that he was moonlighting. Sorry to use that word, but he was weighing many options to choose one among the courses at that point of joining PGPMAX. So what made Mehraj to come to ISB PGPMAX? Is there any regret any point of the time later on?
So, sir, vis-a-vis ISB and other organization, I think I'm very happy with the choice I made. One reason for me choosing, which now after years, it might sound a little silly, but that time I thought, no, let's do an Indian MBA because I thought, I want to be, my industry is very India specific and I want to grow, etc., etc. So that's also one reason. But I think that reason is not valid for everyone. ISB indeed is very international, very global. And most of the time professors were, flying all the way from US and teaching you and the research, etc. In fact, sometimes we wanted to tell that, please use an Indian case and we in a case study class. So I think the best answer for your question, sir, is it has to be an individual's decision. Study the program and see how it reflects back to your industry or your career path, and then decide. So there are many good courses available, and this is also a great course. So I think that has to be an individual's decision. I can maybe quote you one example of my friend who had an offer from INSEAD and ISB, okay, PGPMAX. He was that moment had just moved from Europe to India. He was leading expansion of a retail chain. He was not my batchmate. Huh? Someone like Smriti and many other people in Alum office sometimes have this, they just pass on the calls to Mehraj Dubey ki ye sambhal lega. And then so I received that call and he says, yeah, I'm not sure, whether to go INSEAD. I've spent so much time in Europe. Anything Europe looks, more, sort of fit was better for him. So I said, what's your plan? We talked on phone. I didn't even see him. And one thing came out very interesting that he was that time expanding his retail chain, right? So he was one day here, one day in Bangalore, one day in Chennai, one day here, there. I said, in the middle of all this, if you're traveling to Hyderabad, I think your organization is more going to be more happy with you that you're working within India and expanding in India and studying in India. So I'm not saying that's the reason for everyone to join, but like him, you have to evaluate. And eventually he joined ISB and he's very happy. He's grown. He's working with Tatas now. So it has to be very, very individual fit that you have to see. But that said, ISB is much more open. When you, let's say, forget all this and compare ISB with the different world schools, it has very good rank, by the way. It is very open, and it is, because Indians, by by the virtue of being in Indian industry, I think we are so many countries within India. Like, what the experience that Lata has, and other day she was sharing that she's been to so many countries, or Dhanya, and within this conversation also we have so many different experiences. I think that's also a very, very unique advantage of going to ISB, that you get to meet people from very different backgrounds, and that itself is very global. I mean, in my class, there were 3 entrepreneurs who started a firm in US and then shifted back to Hyderabad and were in my class. So it was hardly a India or a Europe or a this or that. So that way, you should see all those aspects. I hope I was articulate enough. It's a very complex thing to decide which school. Ranking is just one thing, but there's so many other things, and it has to have a right fit with you. I mean, you should really evaluate the program and how it really works.
Got it, got it. So what is going to be a benefit to you, which will be which curriculum or which sort of like the way it is conducted is going to be beneficial for the future. So one
Yes,
need to
that's
go by
very
that.
important, actually. Yeah, very important, because just reading books. I mean, on Coursera, all the core courses of Wharton are available. So why do you want to even spend money, right? I mean, that's also one way to look at it. So you can do best of MBAs online these days. So why do you really want to go? But so that's why you should really evaluate that why you want to go to ISB. What is it that you're getting?
Yeah, in fact, I was more fascinated by the 12 or 15 residencies of ISB, what is happening. Probably that could be a lot of value addition, I believe.
Definitely, definitely.
If I may add to Merad's point, I think so. I was also one of them who was exploring a lot of programs. So I applied for INSEAD Ellipse, and then I also applied
Oh, sorry, I think we lost her.
We lost Dhanya.
Yeah, otherwise she was coming to the right one, because that is where I'm confronted with right now. I'm ultimately looking for INSEAD Ellipse and otherwise this PGPMAX or Harvard's Indian course. Among these 3, I had to choose.
Yeah, Dhanya, we lost you in between, so we could.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. So I was saying that the choice of picking up ISB was relatively easy when I had options to join the other 2 as well. I think if you just look at the curriculum that ISB offers, just the wide array of the disciplines, which sort of it in some sense it renders or the possibility of building skill sets according to your own visions in life, right? And it sort of covers the length and breadth of anything and everything that you can actually think of. And the professors, if you actually go through the kind of professors, and I think Lata spoke about it at the start as well, it's just a different experience to be sitting in the class with professors of that stature. And lastly, I think it's only in PGPMAX that it offers the best of both worlds, right? So it's not a online MBA, or it's not a full-fledged MBA like a PGP, but it's best of both worlds. You get the experience of coming into campus, working with people who are the best, minds, like I was saying some time back, and also at the same time be able to sort of get back to your work, go through the material as and when before you're coming into the next class. I guess it's just sort of it's a mix of it's a great program that's been put together and tailor made for people like you and me, who have worked for good number of years and are looking at the next big thing in our lives, right? And honestly, it was a far more easier decision to make when you go through the curriculum.
Thanks, Daniel. Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Satyapal, for asking your question. The next question that I have in the Q&A box is how much time was spent for pre-reads and assignments outside the weeks in ISB, and how did you manage to do it? Like any one of you can start.
I'll get started.
Yeah.
So I think it honestly depends on your schedule, right? There are people who are able to do or who would have like a 9 to 6 kind of a job, or 11 to 8 kind of a job in some cases, when you are with working with global partners as such. And if that's like very fixed, and you do have a so for people who, so I had 11 to I would say my shift starts at 11, but what time it ends is never, because I used to work with customers in the Pacific region, in the eastern region, and it would go all the way up to 2 o'clock in the morning. And but then the good part that I had was my weekends were a lot more to myself. I didn't have to really work over weekends, so I the weekdays were completely for work, and weekends was when I would catch up on my pre-reads and completion of assignments, because that's a lot more time that I used to give myself. I had a few other batchmates who had a more defined regular job. They used to do a 9 to 6, and they were able to wrap up by 6, and they would spend a couple of hours in the evening. There were some people who were early risers, who would actually, who are up by like 5 or so in the morning, and they would say that morning hours are when, and this is irrespective of women or men, right? Morning hours are when the kids are asleep. I'm talking about like, a 5 to 6:30 ish time frame, and the kids are still asleep. You have that time for yourself. It's a lot more quiet time. So it really is left to you on when you think is the best time that you can focus and concentrate on, and give that time completely to yourself. And depending on that, you'll have to, but on roughly, I would say you will need to spend at least an hour to an hour and a half every day on an average, to finish up the assignments of the previous course that you attended, which you'll have to submit, and also be prepared by finishing up the pre-reads for the upcoming courses that you're going to attend in the campus in the upcoming month as well. So that's, so an hour and a half at least to 2 a day would, an hour to hour and a half to 2 would be good. You can do it at a decent pace and complete it. That's what I would say.
So I think
There.
professors will, we can mention maybe Lata, the professors will actually specify number of hours needed for a particular pre-read for a subject. So they say, okay, 6 hours of pre-read for this course or something like that. But I think, yes, for a lot of people, 1 hour every day somewhere you can take out, and it's manageable in that much time. And then of course you also help each other in by discussion. And I'm not saying you can't share exam notes or something with your friends, but you can share a lot of pre-reads, and you can discuss on phone and when you meet on campus. So all that environment actually counts. So you get into this faster reading and learning zone. I think 1 hour, if you're really asking me how much time, 1 hour a day was good. Sometimes you miss that, and you catch it up on your weekend.
Sure. I have the next question for you. So how did the course help to switch from a technical to a management role? Tanya, if you want to answer it first.
I think Lata would be a better person to answer this, Priti. I'm not a techie. I've been in the business side all my life.
No, I
Over
think
to
the question is not just about being a techie. It's about from one function, which is like, specific to that core industry, and
Like, yeah, from being
management.
a functional expert to
Okay.
being
Being management.
organizational expert.
So in my case, I've been part of sales and marketing throughout my life, and I continue to be, part of sales. So I guess somebody else can pick up the question who's actually
So I think I mentioned. I think I mentioned this in the beginning. In my case, that's been the case. In fact, I have within managerial side also have taken multiple different coach roles. So it's been quite a ride. Sometimes it's been very tough, but it's been fun overall. So it does give you, say, a lever for every other thing going on in office, because you learn to appreciate what's going on in the life of a finance guy, what's going on in the life of a operations head. You learn to appreciate, and that's where the whole reflection changes, how you talk to people, how you plan, and how you speak in meetings. Because you learn to, you know, your CFO might be having, when he says, oh, you know, over a cup of coffee, ki yaar, cash flow ka problem hone wala hai. So you understand what does it really mean. Instead, just saying that this CFO is, you know, throwing tantrums. He's new in the organization. He's criticizing, blah, blah, blah. You learn to appreciate that, ha, bhai, cash flow is a thing that we studied. I can appreciate he might be going through a problem. Or a sales guy, when he comes back and says, he shares an insight from the industry. You learn to appreciate that insight. You can apply that in your marketing decision or in your other managerial decision. Even in one of the organizations, post my MBA, I was working, I had to manage 14 leaders. So I was hired by a chairman of that organization, and my first job was to sort of coordinate these 14 leaders who were actually, quote unquote, you know, outlandish, so to say. It was not working out for the organization well, you know, to manage these 14 people, because they were stars of their own fields, but the organization. So, you know, I started by writing mails or meeting people, or so you know, and then the comfort level really changes, right? Comfort, because you're sitting and studying with so many leaders and you understand them and their pain points, the comfort level changes. So that's also one big advantage, you know, in the management job, the comfort level, the whole, you know, knowing the other side.
Sure. The next question that I have is again from Satyapal. He's asking about your thoughts on the international immersion with respect to the value addition that it brings to the program. Lata, would you like to start?
Yep. So one of the most important aspects when we traveled there was also to realize how honestly how ISB treats us, right? I kind of felt that ISB was really the whole college was surrounding this was built surrounding the students. What I mean by that is every aspect that happens in the class was to ensure that the student gets the maximum. There have been enough situations where we've gone into the class at ISB and told the professor that, hey, you know, can we change the curriculum a little bit this way so that it's more tuned to what we would like to learn about. And then the professors have come back, and I'm talking about Bruce, who's one of the professors for economics, who's again an area leader in his. And when he came in, we said, "Hey, can you actually focus a lot more on, you know, macroeconomics for us, because that was not going to take a little bit of a higher precedence then." And he went back and changed the curriculum, and from the next day, he taught us a new set of things, right? So I felt that ISB was giving a lot of importance. In short, if I could say, they were pampering us, be it the kind of feedback that we gave on the course, and that too to such you know professors of this kind who actually achieved a lot. They took it and they went back and they changed things to align to what we wanted. Be it on the food part, we used to throw tantrums in spite of the food being awesome, and they would go back and they would make those changes and come back and ask us, are you happy with what's happening? On the stay part, on everything, whatever was called out as feedback was immediately taken and worked upon. And when I went into Wharton, I felt that it was completely different there. It's a highly renowned university. They have a lot of accolades to carry, but then there the students were treated as students. And then I missed ISB a lot. I'm just being very candid over there, right? Whereas Kellogg's, from that perspective, was a very different experience. It was as much as how an ISB treated us. We got to work with professors. We also met a few students who were assisting professors who came in and taught us classes, and we realized the amount of knowledge that they have as well, not just the professors in the way it was being taught. We also realized that ISB was giving us a world standard in terms of the education, and we didn't find it a lot different. Yes, there was a change in environment, there was a change in the professors. It was good to understand the culture, but honestly, ISB in Hyderabad was giving us the similar kind of experience that we got there, right? I really loved the international
Completely,
immersion.
yeah. I second that. Very well point. Very good point, madam.
So to me, that international experience was helpful. It was good to understand a different culture, but honestly, ISB was delivering the same thing over here in Hyderabad for us, and and this is what I heard from my dad, who's 80 years now. So when I did the course, he was like 73, 74. This was the last day after having finished the 15th exchange week that we were stepping out. My dad said, "I know you have spent all your earnings on this particular program at ISB, but I think ISB has given you much more than what you have paid them. And there are no regrets that we have actually done this course at ISB." This is from a person who's not extremely educated, but had traveled with me for almost 12 out of the 15 program residencies that I did at ISB and saw me go through it.
Sure. Thank you, Lata and Mehraj, for helping us with that question.
Sorry to interrupt, Smriti.
Mhm.
You know, I in my room in office, I hang that Wharton certificate behind me.
Yeah, yeah.
So right now I'm speaking from home. So that's also an advantage.
Yeah, so now we have London Business School and Wharton as the international immersions.
Wow, so much better. Yeah.
Great.
So the next question that I have, especially for you, Danya and Lata, is what makes PGPMAX a great program for women, and how does it equip them to have a seat at the leadership table?
Do you want to get started, Danya and Nalad?
Yeah, I think it's more, I guess, one word answer, Smriti, more than a very detailed explanation of this. I think it is just self-belief, and I guess a lot of women um, go through a lot of self-doubt at various stages. I'm not generalizing, but it is some things that we sort of question and second guess. I guess that's what goes away the minute you sort of invest in education and be part of something which is as great as PGP Max and the entire cohort that you actually work with. I guess it's just that self-belief.
Thank you, Danya. Lata, would you like to share your thoughts here?
So I've generally seen that the number of women is much lesser than 50% in the cohort that we have, right? If you look at my cohort, we had 54, out of which we had just 6 women. And I think anywhere between 6 to 10 is always the number that we see. My humble request to the women who are always used to putting others ahead of them and others' priorities ahead of them. And I say others in the family, it's always about, hey, the kids have to go through the education. My husband has to maybe upgrade himself. I would say, please prioritize yourself at some point in time. There are easier ways to do it. There is an educational loan that's available. It's not that you have to put the entire burden on the family, and as you're working you can repay that. It's not very hard, but please prioritize yourself. When you prioritize yourself and go through this program, I think there's an immense amount of self-confidence and learning that you gain along with it, and that should take you multiple strides forward, be it sitting at the leadership table, be it sitting at the board of directors, anywhere. And then you build a very nice ecosystem. So I was actually a part of the advisory board for Bindu, who was a part of the CEO story in July, and she's from a different batch altogether. And Bindu runs a Shikshadan, which is an educational support system for people trying to do, and for the kids who are just finished their 12th and wanting to do education after that, or a degree after that, and really don't have people to support, right? So that's the kind of network that you build, which actually helps you learn a lot from each other as well. So please prioritize yourself and spend on yourself. It's really worth it.
Sure. Thank you, Lata. With that, we have come almost to the end of the session. So the last thing that I would like to ask you panelists is any tips that you would want to share, or any last minute thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with your audience, like an open forum. So Mehraj, would you like to?
Yeah, let me start with that. I'm having my chai with it. So I think one big It's not always pleasant to hear this, but ISB PGPMAX is not going to give you your CEO rank on a platter. It is this shift that you have to make yourself, but how you need help and who is going to help you in making this shift is what you decide. And ISB is a great choice when you need help or learning on that. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not like someone becomes a CEO because someone goes to ISB. I'm saying CEO is one person's own journey, or whatever you are, whatever you become in life, your leadership or going to your next level. It has to come from you, but you need learning and help for that. And for that, ISB is a great choice and PGPMAX is a great choice. So what I'm trying to say is that choose a partner in life carefully, choose a school in life carefully, because it's going to have a lifetime impact. And as we've already spoken about, it's a big investment. So a little bit of extra investment maybe, but choose the right thing, which has a long-term impact and it's a lifelong, relationship.
Thank you, Miraj. Thank you for that wonderful thought there. Danya, would you like to share something with the audience today?
No tips as such, Smriti. I think most of them who are part of the session today have already at some level made up their mind to invest in learning and education. And I think all they needed was some level of validation in terms of, is this the right thing? Am I investing in the right thing? Is this the right money? Will I be able to do it? And I guess all of us, I mean, ISB has now produced at least an average of about 50 per batch in the last 7, 8, 9 years. Or I think 2011 was the first batch in the last 11 years. And I think there are several examples to sort of look towards and then talk to any one of us, right? And I think it's now, back to all of y'all to sort of make that decision and move forward. And to what Mehraj said, right? I think you've already made the decision. It's just a little bit more push, and then you're there, and you will see the transformational journey at the end of 2 years. And I think each one of us can guarantee that here.
Sure. Thank you, Danya, for that lovely thought. Lata, would you like to share your thoughts?
Just a couple of things. One is that to second what Mehraj said, this is a lifeline that you're getting for your lifetime, right? That's what ISB is. We are in touch with our professors when we have some kind of a practical problem and we need to kind of just pick their brains and ask how to proceed further, right? Or we actually have a WhatsApp group with all of our 54 participants, and we actively reach out to each other. We can pick the phone, as Mehraj said, right, and talk to any one of our folks, or even to an extended community of PGPMAX folks, saying that, hey, I'm from this batch, can we have a conversation? And people are ready to listen, right? So those are certain aspects. And absolutely, you will not regret for what you gain out of this program. You'll absolutely not regret for what you have paid. That's something that I can guarantee basis my personal experience. And the reason why I'm going back for an EFPM program, and I'm the founding batch of the EFPM batch, we have out of the 16 people that we have in the program, 12 of us are return people. So 12 of us are people who have either done a PGPMAX or PGP with ISB. And there is a reason why we are coming back. That's because we've actually got what we had actually, wanted to receive in the earlier program as such. So the one last thing that I want to say is, if you're joining the program, please make sure that you network extensively. Please make sure that you build a lot of peer relationships and learning, and lifelong relationships with the professors and with your batch as well, right? Switch yourself away from work for that 1 week. Make sure you build a team which is able to run the show in your absence, and you really are able to focus and do the needful when you're at the campus. That's when you can gain the maximum. So I'll stop at that, and really, really wishing you guys that you make the right choice, and feel free to reach out to any of us. Every week I have somebody whom I speak to help them make a choice on the PGPMAX or on EFPM. So happy to extend support or talk if at all any more queries are there.
Thank you, Lata, and thank you all the panelists today for, as Mehraj said, sacrificing your Saturday evening and motivating
Thank
us.
you. Thank you to Smriti for sacrificing her Saturday evening for
No,
this
happy
session.
to do that. Happy to do that anytime. And I think with the deadline being 15 days away, I hope you got some motivation and some insights or some clarity about the program, and would be really happy to help if you would like to connect with any of the panel today or me in particular to talk about the admission process or anything. We can connect and we'll help you there throughout. Thank you for joining and have a great weekend.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. All the best.